Ladies and gentlemen, welcome tonight. We are having our monthly webinar here at Management One. We have a fabulous webinar for you tonight, and we're anxious to get started and give you some really great information. Most of you know the summaries, believe it or not, and most of you are getting to know our panel. But tonight we changed it up a little bit. Krista Pennington, she has been with us for over 16 years now. So say hi, Kristen. And then Chrissia Penna, she is going to be actually attending tonight, but she's not on the panel tonight. And Chrissia takes care of all the sales and listings in the Inland Empire and has been with us for the last 9 years. Tyler, who's been with Management One 2 years and in real estate 6 years. Tyler handles all the sales in Orange County and our business development at Management One. And tonight we have a special guest. On the IRAs is Daniel Ortega from Vantage, and he's here tonight to dig a little bit deeper into how significant IRAs can be in building your wealth. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kristen, but before I do, make sure you email us in your questions throughout the webinar. It's being recorded, so you don't have to take notes. So hit us with all the questions you want, and we will go ahead and be sending that video to you within about 24 hours after the webinar here tonight. And if we don't get to all your questions, we will actually go ahead and still answer them when we send you out the video. So with that, Kristen, take it away.
Daniel's going to kick us off with the IRA and growing your wealth. I will follow it up with some new laws for 2022. And Tyler will close us out tonight with real estate market updates and a rental market update. So with all that being said, Daniel, you've got the stage.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Ron and Kristen and Tyler, for having me today. Thank you for everyone for attending. I'd like to start the segment we call, it's a condensed version, but it's called Set Your IRA Free. Our goal today is to talk a little bit about, self-directed IRAs and, again, how they can impact and grow your wealth in real estate, or your retirement wealth through real estate. Disclaimer, we do not provide any investment advice or endorse any products. All the information and materials that education you'll get from tonight is strictly for educational purposes. So, we encourage you to consult with your attorneys, accountants, financial advisors before entering into any type of investment. So now that I've got the boring legal matters out of the way, let's jump into what we hope you take away tonight. One, a little bit about us as a company, Vantage. Two, what is a self-directed IRA? What are the investment options available to you? And quickly, going over what are the prohibited transactions. So what I like to call what you can't do and who you can't work with. And then lastly, is a self-directed IRA right for you? This last question is more an internal question, really, something we hope you walk away saying, is that right for me? A little bit about Vantage. It was founded by the second most handsome man in our company, our CEO, Mr. JP Dada. It was founded in 2004. And since then, it's right under 18 years we've been in business. And we're the leader in self-directed retirement plans, administering right under $2 billion. So that number's gone up in assets under custody, while personalized service to over 7,900 clients. Nationwide. So you don't necessarily have to live in Phoenix, Arizona, where we're located to do this. You can live anywhere in the country, and we'll talk more about being able to purchase inside and outside the country. So as you can see, kind of the services we provide is, the self-direction, the facilitation of self-directed IRAs. It's our job. As we mentioned before, we're not financial advisors, so strictly our job is the custodian. So and the record keeper. It's our job to make sure that all of the records are kept in a timely and accurate manner. Any uninvested cash, you're protected up to $250,000 through the FDIC. We offer free educational workshops. You can just visit our website on vantageIRAS.com. And we also offer a monthly newsletter, which talks a little bit about industry insights and also some company news. I apologize. I feel like I'm rambling through that. So let's start here with a little bit of industry misinformation. So one, IRAs were created in 1974. So the first year you were really eligible to to contribute to an IRA was in 1975. And since then, Here are some of the kind of modern day fallacies that we've come across. One, you can't buy real estate with your IRA. You can't invest in a private company with your IRA. And if you want to do that, you got to take a distribution, which is a taxable event, in order to purchase an alternative asset. And lastly, you personally can't control your IRA. So we're here to tell you that stock market-based investments are not your only option. And so from 1974 to now, there hasn't been a new law that's come out that say, hey, now you can do this or now you can do that. So from the beginning of time, you've been able to really do this. It's just that it hasn't been made aware to everyone that you're able to do this. So these fallacies or perpetuation of misinformation over the last 40 years has made our jobs harder on the campaign trail, as we call it, our campaign awareness, to making sure that people are aware that they can do this. So, what is an IRA? And it's simply just a trust. So we usually will go over in a little bit more detail, kind of what some of the benefits that offer outside of an IRA that a trust has, but it can do pretty much the same thing. It's a tax deferred or a tax-free vehicle that is created in the United States for an individual for the sole exclusive benefit of that person or his or her beneficiaries. And so people are like, oh, well, I've never heard of a self-directed IRA. Well, a self-directed IRA is not a type of IRA. It's really a marketing term in which identifies who and how the IRA is going to be managed. And so we talk a little bit about the IRA, and an IRA with us is no different than you would have an IRA with like Fidelity or Schwab or TD Ameritrade. The difference is the assets that you can custody in an IRA with TD versus us. So TD or Fidelity, they deal in the traditional side. You want to buy stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETF, publicly traded REITs, which are real estate investment trusts. You can do that on their platform. But if you wanted to say, I want to buy 123 Main Street, which is just a single family residential real estate property, they'll tell you you can't do that. Or really what they mean to tell you is you can't do that with us. With Vantage, we would just open an IRA for you, which allows you to purchase real estate, private companies, and so on. So as you can see, there's not a self-directed IRA. It's the same IRA. We're still, eligible to the same tax reporting requirements, the same contribution limits. It's just the assets you can custody are different. So there is a lane for the both of us to navigate, meaning Fidelity and Vantage to navigate in. And there's no crosshairs. We don't custody traditional. They don't custody alternatives. So a little bit more about that when we talk about who does what. A lot of the times, because this is such a new most of the time, it's very new. It's the first time someone's ever heard about this. So they're concerned. They're used to, well, I have a financial advisor at Fidelity. He picks my investments. So I think I'm just going to do this with Vantage. But the problem is we're not financial advisors. So we don't pick your investments and we don't direct your money. So I like to go through this so clients understand like who does what. So it's our job, as you can see on the left side of the screen, for us to do the reporting. As the record keeper and custodian, it's our responsibility to report to the IRS your contributions and your distributions. And those are reported on the IRS form 15498 and 1099s. It's also our job to receive any of the investment income and pay any of the expenses on the investments. So real estate's a great example because to buy the rental property, that's the investment. Well, depending on the type of rental property you have, it might be located in an HOA or might have all properties are going to have property tax due. It's our job to make sure that those are paid. Now, we're not property managers. We're not going to tell you if a tenant misses the rent. But it's our job to say, hey, it's time to pay this property tax bill. Can you please give us the authority to do so? That's where the self-direction comes in. We will not do anything until you yourself directs Vantage. So as the client, what's your responsibility in this? Well, it's your job to find and source the deals that you desire to make. It's also your job to provide a fair market valuation annually. Now, what is a fair market valuation? Unlike Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, every day at 4 o'clock when the stock market closes, usually you can log into your account and it will tell you your balance, and it'll always have a little thing that says as of 11/17/21, because at the market close, all of those things are being traded daily. the IRS's requirement saying, listen, you can purchase any asset you want in the IRA. We just require you to provide a value to us once a year. That's it. So that is a fair market valuation. It's providing a value of the asset, or actually of the IRA, once a year. But you're providing the value of the asset to us, and it's on our job to provide that value to the IRS. It's also your job to provide all the documents to process a transaction. Now, Daniel, I've never done this before. How do I do this? We're never going to leave you on an island. We'll tell you what we require. We'll tell you, more than likely where you can get it from, but we can't fill it out for you. We can help you through it, but we can't do it for you. So again, having a good understanding of who does what always makes for a good partnership. So the best part, what do you want to invest in? So again, this is a real estate driven workshop. So of course, we're going to lead off with real estate. There are 3 ways to purchase real estate. You have your direct purchase. I have all the money. My property's $200,000. I got $200,000 in my IRA. I'm going to buy it. You can partner. Tyler and I both, have $100,000 in IRAs. We want to partner and buy this rental property. He'll own 50% in his IRA. I'll own 50% in my IRA. That's an opportunity available to you as well. Now, leveraging. You can also get a loan in the IRA. Take a step back. I know a lot of people's eyes probably is like, whoa, I can just put 5% down and get a loan. No, it's not going to be what we're used to, which are 5% down conventional loans, or you won't qualify for any FHA in an IRA. So ultimately, the way this works, it's called a non-recourse loan. And the lending parameters behind that is the maximum loan to value on a property they will lend is 65%. Some banks. We have a resource list of people who can assist you, but in some of those, it's 65%, meaning your minimum down payment's 35% of the property. They like to see sometimes 10% in reserves. Now, I've seen them do it for less, but for all intents purposes of this, representation, let's just keep it with the 10%. So you would need in your IRA 45% of the total value of the purchase price of the property in order to leverage a property in your IRA. Very easy. Another quick formula I always use: to buy a $200,000 property, you would need $90,000. Now you can finagle that formula however you want, but it works basic like this: 70% is your 35%, 70,000 is your 35% down, 20,000 is your 10% in reserves. Add it up, there's your 90,000. You can take that formula and manipulate it however you'd like, but that is able to give you something to play with if you have some IRA money and you're interested. Private lending, great option for a lot of clients who maybe they don't have $200,000, $300,000 in their IRA. They have $75,000 to $120,000. Well, you can privately lend. Someone who's a fix and flipper, someone who needs to, maybe they want to get involved and they want to buy property. You can finance that and, secure it by the deed of trust or secure it against the property. You have a secured note and an unsecured note. Secured, collateral; unsecured, no collateral. Easiest way to remember it. Also, you can invest in private companies. Private companies could be a company that goes out, buys real estate. It could be a local mom and pop restaurant down the street. All of those things you're eligible to do within your IRA. And again, joint ventures is something you're also allowed to do. So let's talk about what you can't do. So, since, from 1974, again, the IRS didn't sit down and say, all right, houses, can they buy houses? Yes. All right, check. They didn't do that. What they decided to do was instead, because there's just a plethora of things that you can use your IRA for, they decided to just sit down and tell you what you can't invest in. And it's really 2 asset classifications. 1, a life insurance policy. 2, collectibles. Why a life insurance policy? An IRA cannot be the beneficiary of a life insurance policy. Simple. Collectibles. It is very hard, as you can see in some of those, and we'll talk about that little asterisk next to this coin, but it's hard if you notice: work of art, antique rug, metal or gem, alcoholic beverage, a stamp. It's very hard to associate a fair market value with those antiquities or antique items. Funny story, my uncle was the president of information technology for Sotheby's. And for anyone that knows Sotheby's, they're one of the biggest auction houses in the country. He would talk, he lives in New York, I live in Phoenix. We talk every day when he get out of work. Hey, Dan, you'll never guess today what sold. I'm like, what? The first ever stamp. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. That's amazing. $10 million. So again, owning that in your IRA would be very difficult every year if you were trying to get a fair market valuation for. So I give that funny example because that is, so if you're thinking on, hey, I want to buy, antique cars, or I want to buy that, it's hard for you to hold it directly in an IRA because it's hard to get a fair market value for it. The asterisk next to coin, you are allowed through an IRA to purchase precious metals. In 2008, in the Great Recession, as people would call it, a lot of people were taking their IRAs and buying, what more tangible assets. The market obviously was not doing so well. Housing market probably not doing so well. What was the most tangible asset that people always thought, worst case scenario, I could always trade gold for milk. So people were buying gold coins, silver proof coins, palladium, with their IRAs. Those are allowed as long as they meet the government's fineness, and your broker will tell you. So if you deal with a broker like IRA Service, Gold Services, Swiss America, some of those brokers, they will tell you that they do meet the fineness requirements by the United States government to qualify for IRAs. Now, who can't you do business with? So this, Internal Revenue Code section 4975 outlines what we call, disqualified parties. And what that means is anyone that's related either directly or indirectly to the IRA. Excuse me. So I'm going to break this list down into, obviously it's already broken down into two separate parts, but I'm going to break it down into two separate words called investing and transacting. So everyone on the left side of this list that's under the word related parties, you are not able to transact with. What is a transaction, Daniel? Okay. I am, Ron is my dad, or let's use Ron and Tyler, for example. Ron has a property that he owns, outside of his IRA, 123 Main Street. He owns it. It's doing really well. Tyler's like, man, I would love to buy that property from you and put it in my IRA. Well, he can't because he's listed under that related party, and he would be transacting with his dad, purchasing something from his dead father. Now, I hope everyone knew that you guys were related. If not, the jig is up. Why
can't I be the young guy?
Yeah. And so now let's say that the property next to where Ron owns, 456 Main Street. Ron doesn't own it. It's owned by John Smith. Ron has an IRA. Tyler has an IRA. They can partner together and invest on that property because neither one of them are transacting with themselves to purchase that property. They're investing together. So that is very important to understand the differences of the word transact and invest, because on the right side of that list, it's fair game. I always joke that the IRS doesn't care about stepchildren because they don't, but anyone on that list on the right, you can invest and transact with. So one thing that I always get every year around June or July, hey, Daniel, my kid's going to college. I want to buy a property in Kansas, which I'm going to rent out to 4 other students, but one of them will be my son. You can't do that because why? Your son would be transacting. He's benefiting, receiving a service from that IRA. Now, if it was your nephew, it was your niece, doesn't matter. You can do that. You can rent it to your brother, allowable. So just one thing to keep in mind, when you're transacting or you're going about this, when you do get into the IRA space or alternative IRA space, to keep in mind who you can and can't deal with. So that's pretty much all I have. Those are the meat and potatoes. Now, this presentation is a little bit longer naturally, but I wanted to give a condensed version. That's all the information you kind of really need to just say, okay, I'm thinking on going into a self-directed IRA. I would encourage you, definitely, my contact information is there. Shoot me an email. I did give Kristen also a link to schedule a direct call with me on my calendar. And you're able to do that, and I can answer any questions. We can go through, a specific deal if you have ideas on it. We can talk about the transfer and rollover process, or currently where your funds are held. Someone did ask a question. Do you mind if I answer that question quickly?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Awesome. So they asked, is holding bullion, silver, or gold in an IRA acceptable? Absolutely. So holding any type of precious metal that is sold through your broker in an IRA is allowable. So you have to go through a broker, and the reason why is we as now let me back up for a second. Precious metals is one of the easiest scams, what I would say, or most easiest asset classification for it to produce fraud. Why? Precious metals is usually like, hey, you send me the money, I'm going to send you the metals. Well, Vantage will send the money, but some people won't send the metals. So what we will do is we require a broker to work with the Delaware Depository, and they act as, we're in a real estate, they act as escrow. We won't send any funds until the Delaware Depository has confirmed either receipt of those metals or movement, if they already have a relationship, movement from their vault into Vantage's vault. And even if they don't directly move it into Vantage's vault, once we can see that they've moved it, then we'll send the money. And it's just a great way to protect investors. So, because we understand the ability for fraud in that asset classification.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Go ahead and send them in. If not, Daniel, I know you've got to run to another engagement there, and we appreciate your time today. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I have a lot of great information, and as far as providing values on the property, we're going to do that for you. As far as the transaction end of it, we'll be doing that for you through the real estate. And so basically, with Daniel setting up your IRA, that just becomes another arm for us to be able to go ahead and put this together very, very easily.
Absolutely.
So that makes it an easy deal.
And I will say this too, lastly, before I jump off, I've seen a lot of, I've been here 5 years, and I have seen a lot of clients who have dabbled, who initially just stuck their toe into the alternative space when it comes to real estate. And now they're like, whole neck is in the water, if you want to per se use that, because they do see the benefits. It's you're investing in an industry that most people, it's all great to invest in real estate. But then the minute they have a sale or they're going to make a ton of money, it's now they're worried about the capital gains tax. And so, this is such a great vehicle because you don't have to worry about the capital gains when you're investing, as well as you're building your retirement portfolio while doing so. So it's a great way to diversify and also protect against, the market, because these are non-correlated assets. So again, thank you so much, everyone. I look forward to connecting with you all and meeting those who have additional questions. Ron, Kristen, Tyler, thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you all, and have a great evening.
All right. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to continue on here. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was a lot of good information. Like Daniel said, just really the meat and potatoes, and that's really, what it's about on this. And we can always do a deeper dive, and we can set it up, and you'll be getting Daniel's information. He's got it set up where you can go ahead and schedule an appointment with him, and he'll go deeper into your own personal situation. And so we're excited about it. I hope you guys are too. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to drill down a little bit more and not too deep tonight, but just a couple examples of how this looks as far as in terms of the numbers. Okay. So eligible properties must be in a first bank or another qualified bank's trade areas. Okay. Property must have a positive cash flow. I'll share with you what that is. Okay. It's only from family residence 1 to 4. Okay, and I'll get into the 75% of the rent in a second here. Maximum loan to value, he already talked about that, of 65%, but you also have to have reserves, okay? And so, like he said, if you're buying a $200,000 house, you're looking at $90,000 all in, okay? And they must be a non-recourse note on that. Okay, how the numbers work. If you're going to buy a 300,000, 65% would be 195 as far as that would be the maximum loan that they would lend on the property. Okay, next item. Okay, if we drop down here, it's just continuation here. Don't worry about the 6.5%. That's just you wouldn't be paying that today. You'd probably be paying half of that. How nice is that? Okay, so this example, you know, they've had it out there for years. But the 195 at 6.5, your payment would be 1233 with P&I. Okay, and your 315 for monthly taxes, insurance payment would be 1548 a month. Now, what they're saying about the rent, if the rent is 2,200, you could only count 75% of the rent, and that ends up being 1,650. You know, as far as what we call a discounted rent, because you have to allow for vacancies, utilities, et cetera, et cetera. So you don't get to count the full 2,200. So on this next page here, you'll see at the bottom here, the 1,650 is the rent after we discount it, and the 1,548 is the mortgage, taxes, and insurance. So it has $102 a month positive cash flow. So this property qualifies. Okay, it's that simple. So if you want to take the 6.5 and put 3.25 or 3.5, you know, then this number is even going to be lower. But this is just an example to show you how IRS looks at this and the requirements you must make. Now, another question of it comes like, well, should I pay all cash or should I get a loan? Well, there's a couple answers to that. Number one, it depends on definitely your age, depends on how much you're leveraged in your entire portfolio. So if you're 60 years old and you're leveraged already at 70%, I would probably recommend that you pay all cash for it. Okay, because you don't have the years to come back again. You know, and the flip side, if you're, you know, 28 years old, you know, and your leverage is, you know, at 40%, and then it's okay. Okay, as long as you have the reserves. Because keep in mind, two things on IRAs. One, you could not manage your own property, so you have to have a management company, whether it be Management One or whoever. Okay, so that's important to understand as far as on that. Secondly, if the resident moves out and you have to rehab that property for $5,000 or $10,000, or it's just vacant for a month or two, you cannot use your own funds to help take care of that property. It has to come from the IRA. Okay. So it's really important to understand that. So when we look at clients, we want to know what their leverage position is, what their reserves are, you know, in order to back this up before we're going to even offer you the property. And if the numbers don't work and we don't think it's a good fit for you, we will let you know, which we've done, okay, several times without my career, you know, that we won't invest. If you want to invest with somebody else, you could, but we'd rather you didn't. But we don't want to put you at risk if we feel it's just not a good fit for you and your portfolio. Okay. Okay. Now, any questions that we have as far as on this here? Okay. Okay. All right. Well, if not, then what we're going to do is move it back to you, Kristen, and talk about the rental housing laws for 2022. Okay.
2022. Yes. So I wanted to address the ones that failed, and this is going to be good for us. So on the docket for 2021, for effective 2022 was AB 1188. So this was huge. It would have required that cities and counties create and administer a online portal designed for landlords to register their rental properties. And we didn't support this. We were very active as a team in working with our local association to get this denied. So basically, if you own 5 or more rentals, you would have to register those, and then everybody would know that you have them. And it's just not good. And then SB 633 would have required landlords to provide specific disclosures to any person in their language. So if you have a cosigner, for an example, of a property, and you know that they do not speak English, they speak a different language, this would have required that you provide all documents to that cosigner in their specific language. As we know, Southern California is a melting pot. That would be a lot of forms and disclosures and versions to have on file. So that one didn't pass either. Another one that was big that we did not support either is this one. This is AB 854, which would have made it so that if you own a rental property, so Ron and Tyler have a property, and Ron wants to get out. Well, Ron can't get out if he hasn't held his ownership for at least 5 years. So that just locks people in. Additionally, if you purchase subsequent properties, so I have a property and I go and buy another rental property, I would have been required to hold it for 10 years before I could exit the market. Thankfully, that passed as well. And just to clarify, the Ellis Act allows a landlord to evict. We're not really evicting them, but giving them a 60-day notice or a 30-day notice, depending on how long they've lived in the property, so that they can exit the rental market. As it is, that is already tricky for us. There's only 3 reasons, which we've discussed before, why you can actually exit the market. And if they would have made it this way, it would have been a lot harder for landlords to leave the market if they needed to. Those that passed. So one thing that passed is the state is going to have to establish what's called a Cal Account Blue Ribbon Commission. And this commission is going to have to conduct a market analysis. It has to be completed by 2024, where people who don't have access to standard banking can put their money, and then we as property managers and you as landlords would have to accept money from this state bank for rent, security deposits, any other fees. We don't know if this program is actually going to get off the ground. They're simply forming a commission to study this new account, or, Cal account. So we'll see where that comes in the next couple of years.
Also, let me ad lib on that while we're there, is that when we send you out an email and we talk about this, we give you a link to your congressman or whatever, make sure you go ahead and send that off. It's really easy to do. It's like click, 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 and you're done. Okay. We fill out all the information for you, but make sure you take advantage of that when we do send you these emails, and which we will be doing from now on. Go ahead.
Yeah, we did send out several. So those that participated, thank you. And then we always do as well. So those that passed. So this is this AB 468 has to do with emotional support animals. So the way it is right now is that if a resident wants to move into your property and you say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't accept pets. Well, you have to accept them if they're an emotional support animal. And so what they've done now is buttoned it down a little bit, but then on the other side, not so much. So what it's saying is that licensed healthcare practitioners can't just sign off, yep, Ron Sudman needs an ESA animal. You have to have a clinical evaluation. You have to have an established relationship with that client or that patient for at least 30 days prior. That's only in a licensed healthcare practitioner. So the other part of it is it doesn't regulate people or entities that can provide verifications. So I say, Ron, as my landlord, I have this animal, and I went to my support group, and the leader of my support group signed off that I need it. You, as a landlord, Ron, have to accept that, because I didn't go to a licensed healthcare professional. I went to my support group, which is a reliable third party on this law. So I don't know if we'll see much of a change. At Management One, we do use a third party pet screening, and they do a lot of this verification. In fact, they do all the verifications. So right now we're working on a couple of applications, and we got one rejected. They said, well, you have to be within the last 12 months. The documents you provided don't meet those qualifications. So it doesn't come from us as a management company. It comes from the third party, and they make sure that everything is in line with fair housing and the laws that are being passed. So it kind of takes that responsibility away from us. Another one that came through is Section 8 voucher. So we've been doing this, and I'm not sure how it came to be a new fair housing regulation because I thought it was always there. But when you're calculating somebody's income and they come to you and they say they have Section 8, you have to include that Section 8 income as part of your income. So for us at Management One, we say you have to make 3 times the amount of the rent gross. Well, if they come and they say, well, here's my voucher, we have to include that income or that voucher as part of their 3 times the income. So we've been doing that, but we also work hand in hand with fair housing, and we always go through training. So it could just be that we picked it up in our training this year, and now it's coming into play for 2022. Another thing that we've seen is discriminatory advertising. We were just talking about this. Tyler brought this the other day. You can't say master bedroom anymore. It's a primary bedroom. And so same thing with this home is located near an elementary school, perfect for families. You can't say that either because it's kind of implying that if you don't have a family, then this home isn't perfect for you. So there are more and more changes to what can and can't be said in your advertising. And even if you're a private landlord, let me just tell you this, even if you're a private landlord, you have to abide by these same things. Fair housing doesn't say, oh, you're a private landlord. Okay, here's your pass. They require you to know this information as well. They'll hold you just as accountable as they hold us. There also were additional regulations that came out, but they haven't been published yet. So when I attended the webinar on the new laws, they didn't have them, and they didn't have them as of today. Fair housing doesn't have to supply them until the end of the year prior to them becoming effective. So as those come out, we'll keep you guys updated in the January webinar.
Let me also add with fair housing items, should any of you own properties out of state, fair housing, that's federal. So that goes across the whole country. So make sure that your management companies, if you have some, that they're paying attention to some of these things, because unfortunately a lot of them don't. They're smaller companies and they just don't have the wherewithal to attend all these conferences that we do. Back to you, Kristen.
Sure. So one other thing that came out, which was like the biggest thing for us, is going to be this mandatory mold booklet. So starting January 1st, all new residents, it's optional for your current, must be provided with a mold booklet. And it's not a booklet. It's a PDF file that's like 2 pages long. It explains to them what mold is, what to look for, what to do. We always have to do a lead disclosure on properties of a certain age. And so now we have to do mold starting January 1st. And they'll have to sign off that they received a copy of it. So all in all, given the last 2 years that we've had, 2022 isn't bringing about any major law changes or anything that's too unsettling. Some of the ones that we had hoped would be overturned, they're not. We still can only ask a resident to move if you want to sell or move back into the property. Those are your 2 major things. We work with and follow California Apartment Association. We attend all their webinars like Ron was just mentioning. They're huge advocates in maintaining landlord rights across the board. They cover the entire state of California. They're always on the Hill lobbying for us. And so there again, when they send out, hey, we need your help, and we pass that along to you, we encourage you guys to participate in maintaining your rights as landlords. That's our goal as well. So 2022 looks brighter than the previous 2 years, and I'm excited to see where everything goes. With that being said, I don't have any questions. Ron, do you have any questions or want to ad lib anything?
Yeah, I wanted you to add, kind of add on to the on the COVID-19, the change that took place, because everybody thought that as of and we as well, November 1, that it would be business as usual. But in actuality, what happens on that is it isn't back as normal business, because when you serve a 3-day, which we do, on the 6th of the month, okay, we can't file 3 days or 8 days later, depending on how you serve the notice. It actually ends up being 20 days minimum. And then after that, okay, if they have applied for rental assistance and they have not been denied, then we still can't go ahead and file eviction. So we're really going to be in this until probably the end of March. By the end of the March, unless there's something else that, pops up with the pandemic, then I think it will be back to normal, and we'll start taking care of business as usual. But we are spending countless hours with residents who aren't paying, and fortunately only 4% of our inventory is like that, but it eats up a tremendous amount of time because everything changes every week. And I'm involved, my partner's involved, accounting's involved, Kristen's involved in meetings that are very lengthy every week just to make sure we're dotting I's and crossing the T's, because if you miss something, you got to start all over again. So it's pretty mind-boggling. So with that said, we're going to move into Tyler, and he's going to update us on the real estate market there in the Inland Empire. Chrissy, like I say, she's not on the panel tonight, so Tyler's going to fill in for her and himself. Go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, thank you. So we talked about this a few webinars ago about inflation, right? So as you see there on the left, year over year, it's been about 6.2%. And just since October, it's almost been up 1%. Wow. And then you see there on the right-hand side, in terms of the Inland Empire, inventory is still super, super low. And national average there is about 13% lower. So, we keep saying it over and over again, but we're still seeing low inventory, higher demand, and, inflation is still there as well. So, the market is still on an uptrend. And at the same time, even if you're looking to buy with interest rates the way they are right now, there's no reason not to. So with that,
let me add on a little bit, Ty, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
We just had an investor. He's been with us a few years now. Just purchased another property, but to give you some idea, he was able to purchase a property at a great interest rate. Okay, and we were renting it for $2,500 a month. We're putting some money into it. He is, and we just got it rented today for $3,500 a month, $1,000 a month increase. So it is significant. So you got low interest rates, you've got high rental rates, okay, and yes, properties have increased in value, but then you've got the other segment, which is even if they started building today for the next 7 years, they still wouldn't meet the demand. So the supply and demand is still intact. And right now you've got low interest rates, and high rents. The other thing of it is, like we talked a month or two ago, is that inflation. If you got inflation, one of the best places to be is have real estate to fight your inflation. So you preserve your wealth. So back to you, Ty.
Yeah. So then next here, speaking of interest rates, I know it's kind of small writing there, but basically this chart here dates back to the beginning of 2020, January. Interest rates were at about 3.75%. Obviously, it had gone down almost to 3.25%, went back up. As of January, the beginning of January of this year, 2021, it was at an all-time low at 2.65%, which is absolutely just bonkers. It's essentially free money. It did go back up to just over 3.1%, almost 3.2% there in April 1st of this year. It's fluctuated, obviously, and as you see there where it says projected, going into this month as well as the end of the year, towards the first part of next year. Looks like it's projected to go up just a bit, but still under 3.2%. So as we've said, as we will continue to say, please, if you're interested or just have questions about is it the right time for yourself, because we do understand that every situation is different. But if you're interested or just don't know and you have questions about purchasing real estate, how can it help? Please contact us. We're more than happy to help with any questions. And so with that, want to share with you.
I want to give you a little story here on myself. Okay, talking about interest rates. In 1977, I bought my first house, VA, zero down, for $69,000, 2,500 square feet, 5-bedroom. Okay, the interest rate on that was 13%. Okay, my VA is now freed up. I'm going to buy another property. Okay, and the interest rate with zero down is 2.25%. Okay, and I can go up to 1.2 million with no money down. How things have changed, right? So that's significant. I mean, my house payment was almost $700 a month. Okay, as far as back then, and that was a lot of money in 1977, when most people's house payments was probably 300, maybe. So just a little, story there to kind of let you know where I've been and stuff. So we're going to go ahead and go to the rental market. Tyler's going to dig into this a little bit.
Yeah. So to kind of start things off on the rental market, again, this is recorded, and everyone that has signed up or attended gets a recording of this. So not going to get too much into the details, but obviously getting the recording, you can go back and read more into the detail. But we'll talk about an overview of kind of the three trends in demand for single family properties and the rentals. So the number of renters that are living in a single family rental has been on the rise for, obviously the last multiple years. And right now they're saying it stands at 37%. So, again, looking to purchase real estate, not only if you have commercial property, this or that, single family home, whether it's a condo, townhome, standalone property, it's a good place to park your money. The next thing is they're pretty much saying right now, again, demand for the single family rentals, it's coming from the young as well as the middle-aged renters who can't necessarily right at this moment afford to buy their own property. So, again, as Ron's alluded to, even if they started building today in the next 7 to 10 years, still wouldn't reach the demand. And with that said, not everyone can buy. And at the same time, that's what's driving rental prices up, as we've seen. And then lastly, the renters, they're in our sample, they're increasingly live in the suburbs rather than places like a downtown neighborhood or something to that effect. So again, when you're looking for real estate to buy, definitely, whether it's myself, Chrissia, our team, or whoever it is, consult with them, make sure it's the right areas for the right prices, and really do your due diligence before just pulling the trigger. So with that said, Ron or Kristen, do you have anything?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the rental market in just the last 2 days. And Kristen, she heads up all the leasing division at Management One, and so I'm going to let her speak to it. But on the properties that just hit the market the last 2 days and what kind of activity it's had. Go ahead, Kristen.
Yeah, so we put 4 properties on the market. Actually, I think it's 5 in the last 3 days, and they all have applications on them, and 2 of them have rented. So, and the other ones, that third party pet screening I was mentioning, we're just waiting on them. Everything else checks out. So as long as their pets come back, they'll rent as well. One of them went on the market this morning, already has 4 applications on it. So the market is still there. The rents are bananas. As we were saying, I think we were calculating that another one went up another $375 from what it was renting for. So it's there. What Tyler said, it's a good place to park your money for sure. As much as I've been with Management One for 16 years, this is crazy. We've never ever had it where we didn't have enough properties for people knocking on our door. Ever. And, Ron, you've been here for 30 years, and I don't think you guys can say that either in this time. This is very unprecedented. All the way around.
We had a number of years back, we had 124 houses for rent. Okay. And today, with those having applications, we probably maybe have 1 or 2, and the one property, it was in Corona on a rugby property is the street name. We increased the rent from resident moved out, new resident moving in, increased to $375. That's $4,500 a year more. That's significant. And you know what? It's not just for 1 year more. It's from here on 1 more year after year. And so that's significant. And if you have 2 or 3 properties and you're getting another $4,000 or $5,000 a month or a year in rent, guys, that's a lot. Whether you want to take it and if you're in a position to maybe put it together and buy more property, or if you're nearing retirement and you just want to pay the property off that maybe you owe 20 grand on. Okay, what a great way to do it. And so we get excited about it. About helping our clients grow, being able to retire early. I remember, years ago, I sold people property, their interest rates were 8%, 7%, 9%. And then all of a sudden they came along a few years back and the interest rates dropped to 4%. Well, that means they're paying half the interest they were paying before. What does that mean? That means they can retire twice as fast because they don't have to pay off the interest. It's half the price. So it's really an exciting time to be in the market itself. So we're going to not have what we go dark as far as in December. We don't go ahead and have any webinars. Everybody's busy at the holidays, and we wish all of you guys a great holiday and be safe out there as well. And our next webinar will be January 19th. And it will be on asset protection. And it's just as interesting as the IRA. Okay. And so I encourage you, we're going to be sending out, we have a program that you can fill out all your financial information, and we're going to be sending you a link, that you can participate in. I think the cost of it is minimal. It's like $10 a month. It's nothing. But it'll put your entire portfolio together, and it's really simple to use. And I alluded to it a little bit on one of the single-family home retirement strategies, but I really encourage you guys to go ahead and fill out that information, because once you get in there, you're going to get excited about your own portfolio when you start to see things growing, not just your real estate, but what you have with your company retirement, your own retirement, and it's just a healthy checkup. And now's a good time to do that at the end of the year to see where do I want to go, as far as for 2022. And let me say this, ladies and gentlemen, you guys can go ahead and just call us up. Say, look, I'd like to have 45 minutes of your time on a phone conversation with Tyler, Chrisia. If you want to talk to myself, that's fine too. And we'll sit down and we'll just chat with you based on some questions we're going to, be asking you and have some information beforehand, but we can pretty much set out in a very broad sense on where we think we could take you in your portfolio. Okay. And it may be nowhere, but you know what? There's no charge for that. There's no charge for that whatsoever. So while we have, advantage on the IRA that you see with Management One, okay, we would be the ones, at least on the real estate end, to go ahead and say, good, not so good. All right. And we'll be straight up with you. And, build your portfolio. And, one last thing I'll leave you with, we have one client, they got so excited. Now they got their daughter and she's building her own portfolio. And so for me personally, that's very satisfying to know that they believe enough in what we've done over the years to help them, and all their properties are free and clear. They want the same for their kids, and I'm sure you'd want the same for your kids as well. And speaking of your kids, sometimes it's okay to say, you know what, I don't care if they're 8 years old or 12 years old, okay, is to buy a house with your kids. Okay, I don't care if they put $100 down, $500 down, make them part of the process. Get them involved early on in life, and they're going to be way further ahead than all of us, because kids are smart today, right? I mean, they're so far ahead compared to where I was. Okay. Of course, I started at 12. Again, keep everybody remembering that. So, okay, guys, have a great holiday. Be safe. We'll see you back here next year. All right.
Bye.
Bye.